On News 4 at 5, answering the call. Find out who's providing critical funding to bring the Central Terminal back to life.
Keeping a close eye on accumulating ice potential this weekend and some heavy rain. We'll have the latest coming up.
And cracking down on the heroin epidemic. The arrest made today in connection to the overdose deaths of 6 people. News 4 at 5 starts right now.
Live in high definition. This is Western New York's news leader. Now, News 4 at 5.
We begin at 5 with a forewarned weather alert. We're tracking the calm before the storm. A winter weather advisory and lakeshore flood watch will go into effect tomorrow. Good evening. I'm Christy Kern. Jackie is off tonight.
And I'm Don Postos. From freezing rain to possible flooding, our area is expecting some nasty weather this weekend. Now, we have team coverage for you tonight. News 4's Jen Shantz will tell us what to do to get ready for the incoming ice. But first, let's begin with our chief meteorologist, Todd Santos. Todd?
And, after a day like today, where some of you well to the south are probably saying this is the best day of the year, we are looking forward to something this weekend that we will interchangeably use ice accumulation and freezing rain, because basically it falls in the form of rain and becomes ice as it hits freezing surfaces. So this does look like room for potentially an ice storm, something that we would classify like that. Winter weather advisories for most of our northern counties start at 2 p.m. Saturday. For Allegheny, Chautauqua, and Cattaraugus counties, technically they start at 5 p.m., but any way you slice it, we will see room for between a tenth and upwards of a ½ inch worth of ice. Keep in mind, anytime you get to near a quarter of an inch or more, power outages, not just a possibility, they start becoming likely. High temperatures today. I'll start with this bright spot. Well, I'll kind of start with it. Third graphic. But there's a look at it. 72 in Olean, 76 what we hit in Wellsville. Buffalo did briefly hit 51. Right now, we've cooled down at least a little bit. So these are our current temperatures. So it's still very nice to the south. I mean, look at Wellsville. That's what I meant about some of you saying it's probably been the nicest day of the year. You can also see the wind direction is different across our southern tier. That's that frontal boundary. It basically is outlining the edge of our far southern tier. So into tomorrow, instead of having this line across the area, we'll all have that northeasterly breeze, and that's what's driving some of the colder air down into our northern counties. At least for tonight, we will see a chance for some limited rain showers. With temperatures staying above freezing, all of these should fall in the form of rain. There'll be spotty coverage, and I think mainly during the later evening hours through early tomorrow morning. And if you look up towards the 4 in the banner, after 7 a.m. tomorrow is where we start to get into some of that pink, and that is the ice. So we'll get to that piece next. We'll talk more about the best chance areas to find some of the greater ice accumulations, especially late Saturday and Saturday night into early Sunday morning. It's really that time is the crunch time. So if you have to travel early Sunday morning, you could have some issues. And I mean, it's impacting my life as well. Believe me, this is frustrating. But really focused on this because of the tree damage and power outage potential. It will be followed up by some flooding rain Sunday into Monday, and we're talking soaking rain potential. So we'll get into that as well, at least for tonight. Let's call it the calm before the storm. Coolest to the north, warmest to the south. And we'll have more coming up. Don, Christy?
As we get ready for the whipping winds and the freezing rain, county crews are on high alert tonight.
News 4's Jen Shantz spoke to Erie County's Public Works Commissioner. She joins us live in North Buffalo with what precautions they're taking tonight. Jen?
Good evening. Erie County crews tell me they're mainly focused on ice. They say the reason that that's their main focus is because once it's accumulated in large amounts, that's the most difficult to deal with. They say even more so than rain, slush, and snow. When it comes to the roads, they've got plenty of road salt in storage, and they say it shouldn't be a problem. That should work fine. But if a buildup of ice forms around power lines or trees, that's when crews anticipate running into trouble, and that's when power outages become a concern as well. Just last week, we were dealing with crazy wind gusts all over Erie and Niagara counties. You can see the damage here caused by some of that. Bill Geary, the Commissioner of Public Works in Erie County, says if some areas get the predicted quarter-inch of ice that he has heard going around, that could cause some problems. That being said, all Public Works staff were put on notice this morning to double-check equipment like chainsaws, salt, which there will be plenty of, and of course, vehicles. Geary says his crews are keeping a particularly close eye on the more rural parts of Erie County.
The southern half of the county we're always concerned with because it's the hilly terrain, but there's a lot more trees. So we've had some issues with the last couple of wind events. Hopefully we don't have any of those issues, but we're there to assist all the utility companies when they have an issue.
I did speak with a National Grid spokesperson this afternoon in anticipation of this wind and rain and ice event. They are alerting extra workers in the region that they may need additional help this weekend. As far as right here in the city of Buffalo, city emergency personnel have also been put on high alert, as has the city's forestry department. That would be the team who would deal with any trees if there is that ice buildup around trees. Already there has been at least one cancellation. I just checked Twitter and saw that the Common Council has canceled an event for tomorrow morning, so be sure to make sure any of your weekend events are still on before heading out tomorrow or Sunday. We will have extra crews in here this weekend and we'll be keeping you covered as well. For now, reporting live in North Buffalo, I'm Jen Shantz. I'll send it back to you.
And make sure you stay with News 4 right here on the air and online using our Forewarned weather app to stay up to date with all the changes to our weather alerts tonight.
It's a major victory for the great people of the east side of Buffalo, for the city of Buffalo in general, and for all Western New York.
State leaders have answered the local call to bring the Central Terminal back to life. The once thriving train station is in dire need of repairs. And News 4's Al Vaughters is here. He's going to tell us how this money will be put to good use. Al?
Well, down in Christie, local officials celebrated a $5 million state investment in Buffalo's historic Central Terminal, announced by Governor Andrew Cuomo, a slice of the Buffalo Billion initiative the governor announced 3 years ago. The iconic 90-year-old complex has withstood years of neglect and Buffalo weather, and plans for that money are already in the works. State Senator Tim Kennedy and Assemblywoman Crystal Peoples-Stokes shared the good news, not only for the city's east side, but all of Western New York. The $5 million investment is especially important for this East Side landmark, which has cheated the records ball several times, as proclaimed in a 1994 Buffalo News headline. Fillmore Councilmember David Franzik was also heartened by the good news.
This is the most significant investment in the Central Terminal since the last train left the station nearly 40 years ago.
In 100 years, not only this neighborhood and the city of Buffalo will be grateful for those leaders who have seen the vision of restoring this great edifice, but the entire world will know it.
It's a huge structure with a lot of resources in here that could be used to benefit not just the community that's immediately surrounding it, but the entire Western New York community.
Now, officials for the Central Terminal Restoration Corporation, which owns the property, say one of their first items of business will be making the landmark tower airtight. Despite all the work to save the building over the years, rain and ice do manage to leak into the building. Until the restoration group took control of the Central Terminal in 1997, the building had deteriorated to the point city officials were ready to demolish the terminal. While the group is all volunteer, part of the state money is dedicated to professionalizing this project to raise additional funds for the terminal and plan the best ways to preserve it. Al Vaughters, News 4 at 5.
At least tonight, there are 5 individuals that won't be on the streets to peddle this poison to our communities. JP Kennedy,
the U.S. Attorney's Office has charged 5 people for pushing drugs, and 3 of the suspects are accused of selling drugs that killed people. The U.S. Attorney says the group dealt drugs in the Buffalo area for more than 2 years.
News 4's Chris Horvanitz tells us the charges they're facing and why law enforcement says this is a win for our community. Chris?
Well, 2 separate indictments charging these 5 individuals were unsealed today. The 5 are accused of moving thousands of doses of fentanyl and heroin. Robert Moore and his brother Reese, 31-year-old Kevin Abernathy, and 21-year-old Joshua Levine are all facing a combination of conspiracy and drug charges. And in a separate indictment, 49-year-old Oliver Kimmons was charged. Robert Moore, Levine, and Kimmons are accused of distributing drugs that killed 6 people in total. U.S. Attorney J.P. Kennedy says all 5 suspects face life in prison if convicted. They are all behind bars tonight. Kennedy says since he became the U.S. Attorney for our area about a year and a half ago, he's charged people in connection with the overdose deaths of 16 different victims.
It's certainly not the solution. I mean, this deals with only the demand, or excuse me, the supply side. We need to deal with the demand side. That's ongoing efforts that we're continuing to undertake in terms of treatment, prevention, education. That's part of the purpose of this press conference today, is to educate people just how poisonous and deadly these substances are.
Prosecutors say the first 4 suspects were dealing the drugs for more than 2 years. You heard Don and Christy mention that in and around Buffalo. The 5th suspect, Oliver Kimmons, had already been indicted on other drug and sex trafficking charges before these additional charges were added. In the newsroom, Chris Horvat, it's News 4 at 5.
We now know the name of the sheriff deputy involved in a deadly shooting outside a restaurant in Pembroke.
The Genesee County Sheriff's Office has identified him as Deputy Ryan Young. The shooting happened just after 11 o'clock Wednesday night outside the Log Cabin restaurant. The Sheriff's Office says 61-year-old Keith Kent from Albion had a gun and fired shots. They say he also pointed it at deputies. Deputies returned fire, killing Kent. Deputy Young has been in law enforcement for 6 years. He joined the Sheriff's Office in 2016. Deputies are still investigating.
And tonight, Buffalo police still searching for the gunman who shot and killed a 19-year-old. Police say this shooting happened just before 12:30 this morning on Littlefield Avenue. Police say they found the young man in the street. Anyone with information is asked to call Buffalo Police at 847-2255.
Straight ahead in 2 minutes, calling for an end to child abuse. Hear from a survivor and what he wants to see the community do.
And then coming up at 5:30, an international drug bust is being made by the Erie County Sheriff's investigators. We'll tell you what drugs were found and how deputies were able to track down the dealers.